Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, 1 plus 1 makes 2, episode 24. In our last episode, episode 23, our topic was to be freedom. However, due to a magnificent, distracting tirade by Mother Nature, freedom was postponed until now in podcast 24. And speaking of Mother Nature, unlike her previous visits in which she appeared personified as a pristine, non-parallel beauty, she is here today as a tree. Yes, a tree! Well, please tell me, Mother Nature and our listeners, what type of tree are you? I am a 10-foot tall eucalyptus tree with full foliage and the distinguishing minty scent of our species. I must say, your crown is magnificent and your scent is stimulating, truly captivating. May I get you a cup of water or a fertilizer wafer? Thank you, Bob, I'm fine. Well, listeners, today's topic is freedom, as we promised in our last episode, episode 23. Common sense states that freedom means there is one or more choices available for a given situation, and each choice has its own exclusive consequence, or perhaps the same as another particular choice. Freedom then gives us, or that is enables us, to make our choices. But herein lies the adversiveness, the antagonistic qualities of freedom. Freedom can be interpreted as an opportunity to make harmful, injurious, ruinous choices as well as beneficial ones. So there you have it. So often we intentionally choose impractical, inefficient, ineffectual choices, and some with harmful, lethal effects, which can, on an international level, kill millions of people.
Yes, and never forget how your human behavior causes the suffering and death of millions of my other offspring who are your siblings, connected as you are by the very genes within your every cell, Bob. And by fellow offspring, get it straight, Bob. I'm talking about the plants, the animals, all the organisms that live on land, in the sea, in the atmosphere. All of them. They matter every much as you do.
Yes, Mother Nature, I know the freedoms that humans enjoy too often result in deforestation, pollution, CO2 emissions, all harming in some way nearly every species here on Earth. National, state, and municipal governments have the power to provide particular freedoms. Unfortunately, some of these freedoms enable choices with harmful to lethal consequences. The most lethal freedom, offered by municipal to international governing bodies, cause that very same pollution and those toxic emissions affecting the land, sea, and atmosphere. Though some of the politicians lie and disclaim their dire consequences. And also, too often, dishonest governments have the freedom to cater to special interest groups, and many of these special interest groups neglect the needs of the majority of their citizens and their environment. Well, listeners, I will say this. Just as the blasts of a heralding bugle announces the arrival of a Hollywood hero, so enters common sense. To give clarity to the jumbled freedoms our democracy bestows upon each and every one of us, to differentiate, to cleave the righteous freedoms from those which are wrongful. So well-being prevails amongst us humans.
How about plain old survival, Bob?
Yes, Mother Nature, survival, fulfillment, gratitude, happiness, yes, all those things.
If I were you, I'd stress survival, Bob. You know, first things first.
Okay. Here's an example. Playing music within your own apartment on the radio. This is an enjoyable, righteous freedom.
found within most cultures worldwide. However, music played too loudly at 3 a.m. in the morning, which can be heard through doors, walls, and windows by your neighbor, is a wrongful freedom. It's that simple.
Well, Bob, do you have any simple solutions so our listeners, their communities, their cultures, their states, their nations, their religions, and please let's forget their politicians and government leaders, so that they all are more willing to choose the righteous freedoms and not the wrongful ones?
Good golly, yes, Mother Nature. By the way, since you have that physical appearance of a tree today, shall I call you Mrs. Tree?
No, Bob. No, Bob. Recall, everything living and non-living is a part of me. So addressing me as Mother Nature is accurate and appropriate. You humans would be more respectful of each other and the environment if you would call each other Mr. or Mrs. Nature.
Why, that's a worthwhile righteous freedom right there. You know, Mother Nature, there are literally thousands of freedoms in both categories, and our studio manager, Mr. B. Apathy, does not give us an extra minute, and certainly not an extra week, to enumerate them all. So let's just scope the most significant and righteous freedoms with the greatest impact on human lives, and, as Mother Nature would say, our healthiest means of survival. So we'll be scoping freedoms cherished by all the cultures worldwide.
Do you suppose survival, has anything to do with these universal freedoms, Bob?
I knew you'd worm the wood with survival as the primary reason for, well, as far as you're concerned, for everything, directly and indirectly.
Naturally, Bob.
Survival does dictate what freedoms are righteous and which freedoms are wrong, so we'll go with that.
Yes, please go on with that. First, just one more thing, Bob. Let it be known that the term freedom and its definition are evolutionary ideological mutations which characterize a particular human behavior.
Very well said, Mother Nature. Thank you for that. Well,
Oh, and one more thing. Your freedom-seeking species humans must know. A righteous freedom respects my balance of all life forms, for it guarantees the overall health of all species, all my offspring, plants, animals. You're even included, Bob. Whereas a wrongful freedom, in its own way, destroys a bit of my natural balance. Keep that in mind.
thank you, Mother Nature. Good habits are formed by repetition, but you know, we have little time left to discuss this earth-shaking concept and the behavioral patterns of freedom.
Fine, Bob, but what I consider earth-shaking might involve meddling with my daily rotation or my orbit. Not that I care one way or another.
Yes, yes, Mother Nature, another of your whatever, so what moments. Right on, my dear unfeeling mother. Listeners, here is our comprehensive list of righteous freedoms, which is shared by the cultures and religions of all humans worldwide. Righteous freedoms include the freedom to not kill, the freedom to not commit adultery, the freedom to not lie, the freedom to not steal, the freedom to not covet the wife and possessions of your neighbor, and lastly, the ultimate freedom, which is most comprehensive of them all. You are free to not do unto others as you would not want them to do unto you. And if you're wondering what adultery is, because a lot of people misunderstand that word adultery, the definition is sexual intercourse by a married man or woman with another person other than his or her spouse.
Well done, Babaroot. Now you best start your speculative humor with wisdom stint before Mr. B. Apathy starts knocking on the studio door while he points at his wristwatch. Meanwhile, I'm going to just step outside like any good eucalyptus tree would and look for some dark, moist soil to stand in and catch some sun.
Okay, Mother Nature, go outside and have some fun.
Fun? That's for humans and some other offspring of mine. Nonetheless, I'm fine without it.
Yes, we know your emotions are the same as that of a dead horse. Goodbye. Okay, listeners, do I have some words of wisdom for you? And a few jollies, too. Have you ever reflected on the difficulty of keeping promises to yourself? It's much more difficult than keeping promises to everyone else. And if you ever wonder why there are so many gun homicides in America, common sense gives us the answer. Those who live by their words, fists, and knives get shot dead by those who live by the gun. Hey, yesterday I received an email from a listener asking me why elephants have such wrinkly skin. Well, I did some research. It's because they won't let you iron them. Hey, here's some good news for gossips. A rumor that doesn't have one leg to stand on will find another way to get around. And now for a warning to procrastinators. Since you don't take one day at a time, you are likely to be attacked by them all at once. So beware. Now for our last bit of providence or horse sense, aptly described either way, wrongful freedoms are the tools of the devil, and a lie is the handle that fits on all of them. Hey, thanks listeners for being here. Thanks too to Danny Brield, our technical producer, and Mother Nature, who's outside catching some sun, appearing and spending some time with us today as a eucalyptus tree. Be good, utilize every righteous freedom you possibly can, and let's see you next time.